I think there are no bigger dreamers in the world than you and I. Like, we dream crazy dreams.
Sometimes I'm like, did I make this story up? It is so wild. I never worked so hard in my life, made so little, and felt so much joy.
Yes.
Like, I could have bottled and sold the joy.
Yes.
I really could have.
Welcome to the High Vibe Life podcast, where we are obsessed with all things manifestation, neuroscience, personal growth, and quite simply, living a life beyond our wildest dreams. I'm Moira Casava, author, speaker, podcaster, manifestation, and mindset master. Since getting sober 25 years ago, I've helped tens of thousands of women break through and achieve massive levels of wealth, joy, and freedom. Now it's your turn. Let's dig in. Welcome back to the High Vibe podcast with me, Moira Casava, your host. I'm so excited about today's episode. We have been talking about doing this for a long time. Today in, not the studio, but on the show, we have one of my dear friends, Lindsay Matway on. Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Gosh, I do feel like we've been talking about this for what feels like years.
Yeah.
And we even had delays in making this recording happening. So I'm feeling like something great is about to transpire.
Yes, I totally agree. And I also feel like we should let everybody know that we really don't have a plan. We also are so faith-led that really we're like, we haven't even said, what are we talking about? So I know I've got some questions on my heart. And I really always I used to always kind of announce people on the show with it's, you know, like you would be announced on a stage, like she's done this and accomplished all these things. But I really want you to share with the audience, you know, who you are. I will say this though, before I kick it over to you to kind of dig into really your backstory and how you ended up where you are today. Lindsay has been just a beacon of mine for a decade. So I came into a direct sales company about a decade ago, and she was at the tippy top, and just somebody that I kind of identified with, you know, somebody that I really not only respected because everybody respected you, but I saw a lot of kind of me in you and what I wanted to grow into. And so you've always been that beacon. You've always been that example to me. And I was thinking about it this morning because I'm like, this actually is really funny because we always talk vision. And I'm like, gosh, I think there was a vision statement about a decade ago that said, I'm friends with Lindsay Matway. And now you're one of my best friends and business partners. So those vision things really work.
It really does.
It really does. But let's go back. I would love to just hear your story. It's so compelling and so real. You have accomplished so much in your lifetime. You've overcome so much. And I know there's probably a lot of people on social media that know you as this really successful version of, you know, beautiful family, beautiful business, all the things. But can you take us back to kind of where it all began?
Yes. So it really is crazy. And now it's getting so far out that it's like you're talking about a whole different lifetime.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, did I make this story up? It is so wild how different my life was 15 years ago compared to where it is today. And so just to give you a little snippet, and, you know, our stories are, we have a childhood and we have all these different things, but I grew up one of 4 kids in double alcoholic family. So we had alcoholics on my dad's side, my mom as well. And then I ended up getting bonus alcoholic parents as my parents got divorced and brought in new people. And so when that happens, some kids, you know, they follow suit, and other kids try to go the complete opposite. And for me, I remember always just feeling like an outsider in my family. And I would sit and spend a lot of time alone in my room. And I didn't grow up in a Christian environment. We would have called ourselves Christian, but we did nothing with it. And we knew nothing. But I always did feel like a presence with me of like, you're different from these people. And don't worry, your life's not always going to look this way. So I kind of felt like, all right, there is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. I think someday, some way, I'm going to do something great with my life. And So I just kind of walked through life thinking maybe that's something great is I'm going to rescue my parents, because one of the giftings that I feel like I have been given from a very early age is I see people not as they are, but as they could be.
Oh, I love that. What a special gifting.
I want, if like only I could give them the vision of what I saw in them, then they would latch onto that vision. They would drop all of the things that were holding them back. And surely, they'd become that person and it would be incredible. And so for a long time throughout my entire teenage years, I was trying to rescue my parents. I was, I'll get a job to help contribute. I'll take care of my brothers. I'll, try and speak life into you and be there for you when you need me. And I found a lot of my own personal, purpose in helping them to heal. And I know there's other children of alcoholics out there, but it's like, it becomes your identity as much as it becomes theirs.
Yes.
And it really holds you back because you cannot help someone to change who's not willing to change themselves. Yeah. And so it's a very defeating place to be in of like, you think you're getting somewhere and then boom, they're back at ground zero again. And you're like, man, it's not like you look at it as they're failing. It's like, I'm failing at this. I need to get better, So
that's crazy. It's like your number one goal in life, you actually have no control over.
But you don't realize it at the time. You're not reading the self-development books and like, oh, wow, you can only change yourself and inspire people. So when I look back at that, it was really, it was easy for me to make excuses about where I was in life because I had a really strong story about that people felt sympathy for. I ended up, to take care of my parents, I ended up dropping out of school in the middle of 10th grade, which is wild to me because I have a daughter right now that is in the middle of 10th grade. So this moment of realizing just how young and innocent she is and thinking, oh my gosh, all the things I was taking on. I'm like, that is crazy. That was absolutely an absurd thing to do. But then I decided, all right, I'm going to break free. Now I'm going to become this person that's going to do things that other people aren't doing. So I ended up dating someone and the housing market was like in this boom. And I had had a job since I was, I think 14 is the first job I had. And get this, Moira, this is hilarious. My first job was at a gym, definitely illegally so, because I had to get paid under the counter. And I got a free gym membership and I was the smoothie girl selling protein shakes at the gym.
My gosh, I love it.
Okay, foreshadowing y'all. I ended up selling supplements and doing workout programs and that's how I had success. So it's like God is planting seeds.
Yes, always, always.
Yeah. So I was a hard worker and I was like, I'm going to break the train. I'm going to, break through all these plateaus with my family. And I bought a house when I was 20 years old. So I'm looking like I'm really doing something here. I became a bartender. And like, if you make, $200-$300 in a shift, at 18, you're living large. Okay.
Right. I mean, that's exactly what I did too. I mean, that's where the money was, waitressing, and then really bartending even more so. Yeah.
It was incredible. But you get stuck in that lifestyle and, it's a cycle. So when I was 20, I've been in a relationship since I was 15, so 7 years. I'm thinking, we're good. We're definitely getting married. Oh my gosh, I'm getting married to the first guy I ever kissed. It's going to be like the most romantic story. I'm breaking all the chains. Bought the house. This is in 2005. At that same time, my brother, who's my older brother, got diagnosed with brain cancer. And he ended up passing away when he was almost 26 years old. And to lose this person that was sort of like that person I always admired and just like wanted to be like, and I wanted us to have this incredible relationship, it just sobered me up to realize like life is not guaranteed. You do not know what is coming. And I was so confused on what direction I was going to go. I was bartending, making good money, but I didn't know beyond that what I wanted to do. And I remember at his funeral, people talking about his life and his legacy and things like that. And I remember thinking, what do I want my legacy to be? And I wrote down on this poster board that I actually have here, what I wanted my life to be like. So this is what it says. And this is crazy because I'm telling you, I had no idea what I wanted to do.
I love that you still have this.
I do. I always have it with me. So I found it. I have it stored in my garage. And It is like one of the most prized possessions because it's
Yeah.
just shows you that even when the times that you don't know exactly what you want to do, God has already planted his mission, his calling deep within you if you ask yourself the right questions.
Yes.
And the question I asked myself is, how do I want to be remembered? What is my life going to be about at the end of the day? And so this says, I want to be remembered as a person who saw potential in everyone and helped them to realize that potential and achieve things they once thought impossible. A motivator and a great example of what hard work and faith can accomplish. A great mother and wife, a dreamer and a doer, a gifted writer and a talented musician, a hero to many and a friend to most.
Wow.
And that was 20 years ago. 20 years. And I'm like, wow. Okay, well, that sounds great. It looks like I was going an amazing direction. I'm in this long-term relationship. I have a house, all this stuff. Then crap hit the fan. So my relationship ended. We owned a house together, but the whole thing was in my name, and the housing market crashed. I started dating someone else, and 3 months into that relationship, I'm kind of thinking I should probably be single. Like I should probably, I've been in a relationship for a very long time. I should probably just be single. I find out I'm pregnant, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my house.
Yeah, those two things don't go together. I think I should be single. Whoops, I'm pregnant.
It was a lot at once. It felt like I went like this, and then boom, my whole world was crashing. And so my boyfriend at the time that I was pregnant with, we had to have a very hard conversation of like, listen, this is going to change our lives forever. So if we do this, we need to know that we're going to be stuck in each other's lives forever. We're likely not going to make it because statistically speaking, this is just not a good situation.
Right.
But we're not going to like use this child to, get back at each other. And so we decided to move forward, which I thank the Lord every single day, because it could have been a very easy decision to go the opposite way and just view it as like, I'm just going to erase that, pretend it didn't happen and move forward. And I was not ready to be a mom, because when you have a childhood where your parents are so like not available, all you do is you want to be the kind of mom you wish you would have had. And I was financially not in the situation.
Yeah.
I was relationally not in the situation. It just felt like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So
gosh, Lindsay, that's so crazy. It's like you needed a mom more than anything. And there you are having to become a mom.
Exactly.
Crazy.
And there was no family, support system there. So I'm going into it blind. And 7 months into that pregnancy, I started to get sharp pains, and lo and behold, like 24 hours later, I was on a C-section table, having an emergency C-section. An hour after that, I get a call from the doctor saying, hey, there's like a 90% chance of cerebral palsy. This baby has a brain bleed. It's severe. I'm 24 years old, so I have no idea what any of this means. I'm also still in this relationship. We're gritting through it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is he going to stay? I'm losing my home. It was just one thing after the other, after the other. And at that point, I did not have like faith to lean into, but I did feel again, like that presence that I felt in the bedroom, where it was like, you are going to be okay. I am with you. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be fine. So I kept pushing through. We're in the NICU for 7 weeks, inevitably come home. And I come home to bill after bill after bill after bill from the hospital. The very first one I ever opened, I remember it because it was like my favorite number back in the day. And that was 222, but it was $222,000 for a neonatologist bill.
Which was probably one of dozens.
Oh, there were so many. It ended up totaling over $400,000 worth of medical bills, plus my home that was under $100,000 under what I purchased for at 20 years old. So I'm like a bartender, I'm never, ever going to get out of this debt.
Yeah.
And now I have a baby to take care of that is not a normal baby where you can just like send them to daycare or it's a full-time thing. So I remember getting to the point where I was like, I don't think I can find my way out of this, which was hard for me to admit because my entire life I felt like I took care of myself. I was going to grit it and go, learn how to make my way. And I remember Billy, my boyfriend, was like, we should go to church. And I thought, that sounds like a little worst idea because we're unwed parents. We're going to be so judged. We ended up, he drugged me there. We joke that there's probably still like skid marks in the parking lot of me like, ah. And, just to speed up the story, I went in and the first message was on living together before marriage.
Are you serious?
I'm not even joking.
Oh my gosh. Wait, were they saying it's okay? Or were they
No,
saying, like, don't do it?
They were not, Moira. They were saying it was not okay. I was being called out. But here's the deal.
Oh gosh.
They did it in a way that was loving.
Yeah.
In a way that made sense. It was the ideal. I could acknowledge that would have been the ideal. And it was like, I felt people that wanted to take care of my family there. And I had a young daughter, baby still. And I'm like, she needs to be around this kind of community. Let's go back next week. And it was like every single week, God was calling me out, but he was calling me up. Like he was calling me up. He was like, I didn't even understand how anybody else could be resonating with the message. It was like that targeted at me. Yeah. I actually get chills just thinking about it. I was like in my seat, like, what is happening? And
that's amazing. And only God,
he just has that way. So I came to a point, and this is like it changed everything. That the sermon was on surrendering your life to God. And if you hadn't had a moment where it was like clearly defined, that was the moment you gave him all control, then you haven't really done it. And I'm like, I don't know. Like I've been praying and I've been asking him to change my situation and like everything's chaotic. But he said, if you're saying, God, change this, but I need this to happen first, and I need this job to be secured, and I need this bill paid for. Like you're putting stipulations, and God's really patient, and he will wait for you to lay down the rope.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oof, I know this is my issue because I'm a control freak and I have a plan. God just needs to get with the plan and then like wave his magic wand and like, let's get with this. I was doing really well before. God, can't you see if you just make this all go away, we'll be good.
Yeah.
I don't work like that. So that was my moment. And I remember after that, nothing changed. Like nothing in my world changed except like my mind and my heart started to change. I started to go into the same life that I had, the same bartending job that I begrudgingly went into every single time. I had such a negative attitude around. And instead of doing it as like bitter Betty, I went and I said, God, you've given me this job right now. This is the job you've given me. I'm going to go serve as if I'm serving for you. And I'm going to go and treat people kindly in a place that they're typically not. And I'm going to see people that you've placed in front of me as a purpose and mission. And when you're ready, I'm surrendered. Like I will go anywhere you tell me to go without stipulation. I won't question it.
And you just said so much, like meaning nothing changed and everything changed.
Exactly.
That's just it. Like when you get that God piece, it's not that everything changes, and he will do that in time, but everything changes. It's so cool.
It really
you can
is.
still be in the storm. You can still be in the turmoil. You can still be in the exact same situation and go from chaos to peace, go from 100%. Hopelessness to hopefulness. I mean, it's crazy.
It really is. But I think that's the misconception is people expect like it to all of a sudden be like, wow, night and day difference.
Yeah.
And it was in me, but like I did have to lay it down and say, whatever you ask me to do in this moment, I'm going to show up the best of who I am right now. And I'm going to lean into who you're helping me to become. And so there came a day where I got the go ahead to leave that bar. And it was very clear. And I left, had no plan on what I was going to do. My boyfriend was like, we are losing our home. Thank goodness at the time there was a lot of foreclosures going on. So mine was like skirting along nice and gently. And I thought, okay, just give me like 2 weeks. And if in 2 weeks I can't find something else, I will go and get another bar job.
Yeah.
But I really feel like maybe there's something.
Mm-hmm.
I got a phone call randomly from somebody at Beachbody saying that I had an inactive coach under me, and I had no idea what that meant. Well, 9 months prior, I had done P90X to get in shape, to get in control of one area of my life after having a baby, because I thought, well, like maybe if I look like how I used to look, like I'll feel like I used to feel.
Yeah.
And I had posted a YouTube video of my transformation because that's how I kept myself accountable, because I didn't want to publicly fail. And I had like started and stopped a bunch of different times. And through that video, a couple people had asked me what I was doing. And at the time, like affiliate marketing wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
And I bought it through an infomercial. So I'm thinking like, you're probably not going to have that. So I signed up randomly. I called on the phone, asked if they had a referral program. They did. I put the link in my YouTube, never thought about it ever again.
Yeah.
This guy's now calling. It's 9 months later. He's like, listen, you have an inactive. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. He sends me this video. I am like mouse over about to delete it. And I just hear this whisper of like, just watch it. Wow. And I'm like, fine. I click on the video and it was like, Twilight Zone, like, wait. And it was the corniest video. It was horrendous, honestly.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, you come from the same world. It was horrendous. But it made total sense that all these people that I had referred to this program, they probably had results and they probably referred people. I'm like, wait a second.
Opportunity. Yeah.
Opportunity. It just was like, maybe. It wasn't like for sure, but it was like, could this be it? And while I would typically disqualify myself because I'd be like, I have no network, I have no, education, I'm not an expert in this area, all the things that I would typically talk myself out, I was like, no, I said I would trust God. Yeah. So I will lean into this.
And that's the difference, right? It's like opportunity's always there. I feel like God's always presenting us with things, but usually we're not expectant. Like you were expectant. You were looking for where the doors were going to open, where those things were going to happen. And it wasn't about what you thought. It was like you said, fully surrendered.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I leaned into this. Billy did not get the memo. He was not about it. And my paychecks that were like me working 100 hours, making $96 off my 3 sales, were not really showing God's favor in his mind. But again, the same way that it worked when I originally surrendered, it was the same thing. It's like all of a sudden I was changed though.
Yes.
Like something unlocked in me where I felt joy that I hadn't felt in a long time. And I felt peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. And I felt like I was getting momentum, even though the paycheck did not reflect. I was like, I felt different. No, there's just people coming into my life. I don't know why, babe. I just feel like I should just lean into this.
Yep.
And so I did. And like, I'm telling you, and I know you know this, like I never worked so hard in my life, made so little, and felt so much joy.
Yes.
Like I could have bottled and sold the joy.
Yes.
I really could have. Mm-hmm. So that started this momentum of like, okay, I finally found something I love. It doesn't pay, but I'm just gonna keep having faith that this is where God wants me, because that's what I was getting that feeling,
Yeah.
And I kept growing in my faith. I kept talking to God. I kept asking for the direction. He kept pushing forward. And about a year later, I was making a little over what I made in bartending, and I was thrilled. Mm-hmm. I'm like, if I could make this for the rest of my life and not have to go back to bartending and have a job that I love, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And he had so much more. Mm-hmm. I started to see these different people come into my life, and I started to see things multiplied, like my efforts and all the seeds that I had planted over that year start to sprout. And then I started to get this bigger vision of like, if he's done this, if I started from bankrupt to now $1,000 a week, what could he do from $1,000 a week? Like the sky's the limit. I started to dream bigger and bigger and bigger. And in a matter of, so from 25 when I started at bankrupt to 30 years old, I had over 7 figures in my bank account. because of the trajectory of this business.
Amazing.
And I had no mentor because I signed up over the phones, right? They randomly assigned me to somebody and that person wasn't helping.
Yeah.
And it kind of felt like, dang, man, I never get a mentor. I didn't get a mentor as a parental mentor. I didn't get a mentor in this business. Like, why am I always alone? And I feel like the theme was like, all you need is me.
Right.
Did you ever need anybody else? I've always been here. I'm going to continue. Like, Jesus is the best affiliate marketer in the world. He's like 2,025 years deep and still recruiting, like he's great.
Yeah.
So,
but how cool that you were able to shift it to that, right?
Yeah.
Like you could hear that message of all you needed was me this whole time versus staying in that victim mindset for the next 40, 50 years, right? Which a lot of people do. And I think that's a testimony to you truly walking in your faith.
It was everything.
Yeah.
It's really all I had to walk on. And I think sometimes that's the most beautiful place to be because there's really nowhere else to go. And leaning into that really did impact everything.
Wow.
So by the time you came in,
I feel like there's so many times along that path because some people I feel like will hear that call, will see that opportunity, but then 6 months in, you're like you said, you're working 100 hours a week making nothing.
Right.
Like there's 1,000 million moments along that path where most people would have quit, right? And you just kept the faith and you just kept pursuing it. I mean, what do you attribute that to? Just your faith journey or the mindset that was shifting? How did you keep on that path when everyone else would have quit?
I feel like when I was in it, I was not just looking at the monetary. I was looking at the different payments I was getting in other ways. I mean, just every little thing, a connection with somebody and them telling me that I had impacted their life in a way that was healthy, like seeing people that, my whole life I wanted to change people, I wanted to make them better. I wanted to help them become who they were meant to be. In the health and wellness arena and in like coaching other people in leadership, you get to work with people who actually do want to make those changes. And that is so fulfilling. And you get to be able to use the gift that you have to see people as they could be. And so that was payment for me. Like all of those transformations and all of the people saying, wow, that really shifted something in me. Or I went full on in that. And I didn't try to judge the vehicle God had given me. I knew that vehicle was supposed to take me somewhere. And so I wasn't getting out until I got to the destination, until he told me to, and I kept leaning into, okay, you put me here for a reason. And the times that I needed the extra reassurance, I just went back. I'm like, okay, if you want me to change paths, you just let me know. But it was always like, nope, keep leaning in. Nope, keep leaning in. I'm like, okay. But it took a lot of work.
I love that so much because, our stories are so similar. And I think we get so caught up with the monetary, with the, I'm doing this for this exchange. And people, they want to know what their purpose is and their calling and what God's created them to do. But then it quickly becomes X amount of hours in versus dollars out.
Right.
And I know for me, it was the same thing. Like there were so many moments where I would look at the paycheck and I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I'm not making any money for the time I'm putting in. Yeah. And what I would always go back to was, yes, there was so much joy and relationship and all of that, but it was also how I was changing, right? I can remember so many times being like, I can't do this. I'm going to quit. And then I'd be like, wait a second. I've changed so much since the day I started this. If I keep on this growth trajectory, I can't fathom who I'm going to become. And so I saw that me quitting would really be quitting not only on everybody else, but quitting on myself.
Everything.
Yeah. And that's such a big part of this story for you and for me and for other people. It's like, where is the joy? What are those other payoffs? Just like you said. Yeah.
I mean, thinking about who I was when I started and who I became along the journey actually blows my mind. Like I said at the beginning of this, I feel like a totally different person because this forced me to grow. The only thing I had control over, thank you, alcoholic parents, because I had learned that lesson, was myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew that I was going to attract all my lowest vibration qualities in other people. And I was like, gosh, why am I attracting this person? And I'm like, because deep down, there's still some parts of me that are like that person. And so I have to level up if I want to attract, a higher quality person that's ready to change. And so I started, okay, Lynn's, only thing that you have control over is yourself. So I had to take just like complete ownership. When I took ownership of everything in my life, and I'm talking like everything with dropping out of school, not blaming my parents, not blaming my upbringing. I said, you know what? Me having that debt, that was me. That was my bad, because I was like, oh, I don't need insurance as a 23-year-old, and I'm dating someone. I'm choosing what creates a baby. So it's like, there are decisions that I could have made a really solid story about and blamed everybody in my life for the rest of my life. When I took ownership of all of it, not having an upline and deciding I'm going to become the upline I wished I would have had. I'm going to become the mom I wish I'm going to have. Like, oh my gosh, sky is the freaking limit. The glass ceiling shattered. And it was like a mission and a fun challenge for me to be like, how much could I level up if I made this like my full-time job to grow?
Yeah. Oh, so good. I love that so much. So let's fast forward. How long were you in that? And then what happened?
Wild. Oh yeah, we're going to move over that way. So I was 25 when I started with Beachbody. I was almost 40. I was 39 and 3/4 when we got a little message, a little like recorded call that they were closing the doors. And gosh, it's like in some ways you look back and you're like, oh, that was obviously coming. In other ways, you're completely blind faith. Living life. So it was just, a wild journey. I'm so grateful. I think both you and I, as we have talked this out, have been like, man, what a blessing that was. And I think we had both also reached our peak and who we could become in it.
Right.
And sort of stuck around because we had this great team and it was a great income opportunity, but like it really was time to fly out the nest and grow even more. So you want to give the people's how this whole thing went down and transpired?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's interesting is to look back on kind of the last couple years that, we were both number one in that company at one point or another. And like you said, I think you and I are both so growth minded that that's the thing that brings us joy, whether we're growing our company, our business, ourselves. And when you can't grow anymore, like for me, I just come to kind of a standstill. Like I go from so on fire to like kind of miserable because I'm not growing. 100%. And so there were so many conversations. I think about so many times I was in that carpool line, Lindsay, where I'm like, Lindsay, help.
Yeah.
And we would have these heart-to-hearts where we were trying so hard to continue to find the joy. There was just a lot of things in the industry and in that business that started to get out of alignment for us as well.
Yeah.
But we had this obligation, we had this duty, right, to keep showing up. And so we were both at the exact same place where like we felt called to something else, but we felt very stuck, right?
Yeah.
Like, such a difficult place to be, to not be able to pursue that calling because you're like, I can't just leave. I can't leave this leadership role that, I've built. And so the craziest part is when we got that news on that Monday afternoon that really company, paycheck, everything was just dissolving like boom, instantly. I mean, they gave us a little bit of time, but that it was going away. I know that both you and I like had kind of, because we've had this conversation, extreme peace, like concern, deep concern for what that meant for the people we led. Mm-hmm. But you were not a concern for yourself. I was not a concern for myself. I was like, we're good. I'll figure this out. I already know that God's been calling me to something else. So I'll spend some time getting clear on that. My only concern is I need to lead my people, right? And so that was Monday. And then I remember exactly where I was in my kitchen on Tuesday where I was like, I should call Lindsay. Because we would just talk every once in a while, right? We were friends, but like kind of just a sounding board for each other.
Yeah.
And you were like, you want to hop on the phone? Because I think I texted you and I was like, let's hop on the phone. And I remember where I was walking in my backyard.
Me too. I know exactly where I was. I was like pacing back and forth by Billy's office.
I was pacing back and forth right by my pool. And just kind of, of course, it was this huge life-changing thing we just experienced. And I was like, how are you? How are you? And there was, I don't even remember what we said, except I remember one of us said, well, there's only one place I would ever consider going. And really at that time, I meant there's only one, as a leader of people, I've done my research, I've gone down the rabbit holes. There's only one place I would advise my people to go to. There's only one choice in my book. And you were like, same here. And I was like, well, it's definitely, you're not thinking the same thing I'm thinking, because not that many people know what I'm talking about.
And I was like, there is no way she's talking about the one that I'm about to say, because I only know it because of my friends. And we're like, Make Wellness?
Yeah. We were like, what? No way. No way. How do you know about that? How do you know about that? I had a personal friendship with the owner that was starting this company. You were like literally once removed. Your best friends were already involved with that company. So like really close in. And we didn't even know that much at that moment. I would say we didn't know enough business-wise to say, hey, we spent 6 hours each researching this company. It was just an absolute knowingness, and the little bit that we knew and the people that we knew that we trusted.
Yep.
We just saw an open door, and we had a knowingness that was the step to take. And no question.
The weirdest thing I spent like a week journaling on this experience because I'm like, wow, it's one of those pivotal moments. It's so similar to the moment that Beachbody came in. I could see how God had planted seeds prior to that phone call when I was ready to surrender, right? God had already planted all the seeds to where I was like, I couldn't talk myself out of it because it was very obvious. I already did the programs. I already thought it was all the things. With this, my best friends were considering joining and founding this company. Of course, I'm going to be like, okay, if you're going to leave your prior company and you're going to make the sacrifice to join this, you gotta sell me on this. So I was asking them all about, the structure of it. I was asking them all about the products, and I was like skeptical at first. And then I'm asking, I asked 100 million questions because they're my best friends and I care about them and I want them to make a wise decision. And all along, little do I know, like God's helping me to vet it.
Right.
He's helping me to like digest and have a understanding of it to where I'm eventually going to be a part of it, which is crazy. I knew the products were good because as they were explaining to me at first, when they said peptides, I was like, peptides, that is going to be extremely difficult to sell and duplicate.
Yeah.
And so then they had to like explain it to me and all the different things. And I was like, oh, wow, I really want to get my hands on these. Like as soon as you can sell it, like I'm buying the first thing, because it sounds amazing. And then as they're getting closer to launching, I'm like, dang it. I actually told Billy, I'm like, if Beachbody is going to go down, they better go down before this company launches because I'm going to be so annoyed, And I said that just randomly. I wasn't actually meaning that I thought that was about to happen, but I was like kind of getting FOMO about it. I'm like, dang, this thing's going to be amazing. And I was so happy for my friends. Mm-hmm. But then when you and I talk, I'm like, no freaking way. One, I thought both you and I, we're going to be in the thought leader space. We're going to go and we're going to do our masterminds and we're going to speak and we're going to do all those things. And we'll probably be just done with that space. 100%. We're going to be done with direct sales.
Yep.
I had done the things. I checked all the boxes.
And there was so much about the industry that I knew that like we were so grounded in like, we will never do this again because of all of these reasons that we had been talking about for years. Yeah. So it was like a hard no. Yeah.
Yep. It's a different thing when you get on a Zoom with hundreds of people that have been like family to you for 15 years and they're looking back at you like with this like like a big bulgy eye look like, oh my gosh, like what do we do? And the intimate relationships you have and friendships you have with people that are not in the same position as you, like financially. I felt such a sense of responsibility to shepherd people well in this season.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you and I talked, I'm like, I would not even have dreamed as big as to be able to combine together in our leadership to do something like together and build something and a business that is structured in a way that all of the icky things, all the things that we just did not jive with anymore are removed. And
Totally removed. It's
wild. And I know from the outside, it looked like such a risky decision. There was like a lot, it was kind of like two different paths. It seemed like people were either taking this path or taking this path. And we looked crazy to take the path we were taking. And, but the piece that we both had, I did not even question, which is so crazy because I am not a huge risk taker.
This is the only place we differ. I'm like, I am totally a risk taker.
I know.
But led by faith. Like I'm a risk taker, but to me, I was like, this is really risky. It's a startup. I love that entrepreneurial, but I also know it's not a risk. Like I knew that.
It wasn't a risk for me that I was scared of. It would be risking like other people's situations. Like these are our top people and we're saying, follow us. That was the risky part for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I would never want to steer them wrong. So I have to be so sure that I am steering them in the place that I truly believe they will prosper most. And with 100% like integrity and just knowing in me, I was like, this is the way. Walk in it. Like, just go towards this. And as things started to happen, I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is the wildest pivot I never saw coming.
And the best pivot of 2025. I mean, it's so crazy because you know what's happened recently? Because I've gone through a lot in the last couple months just in my life. And what's interesting to me is how many people have said to me, like, Moira, you, like, man, the last 6 months. And I'm like, what do you mean the last 6 months? I'm like, I lost my mom in January. It was it's been a really hard start to the year. But everybody brings up the fact that my entire business dissolved overnight in the end of 2024. And I'm like, but it never felt that way. I never was at rock bottom. I was never fearful. I was never upset. I never shed a tear. There was nothing about that experience and that time frame that was a negative. Like it's crazy. Only God could give you that assurance.
God. The only time I cried is about a week or two in. I was in the sauna and I was just thinking about the journey of like the 15 years. And I just sobbed my little eyes out thinking about the blessing that was everything that led me up to that point. And just the sovereignty of God to be able to make this transition as smooth as it was. Like the timing was just
divine.
Unreal.
Talk about divine timing.
Like this company was launching. They had been in a pre-launch for 2.5, 3 months. We came in 2.5 weeks before they launched. It was like the most perfect timing. Nobody could have waited any longer.
Right.
And we wouldn't want to be any later because then we'd miss the momentum and we'd kind of be behind the ball. It was just unreal, the timing. And then we had the bridge of, the company letting us go through the end of the year. And it was just like, I couldn't have written it.
I mean, I think there are no bigger dreamers in the world than you and I. Like we dream crazy dreams. And those years, those last couple of years and those tough conversations that you and I had of like, gosh, I feel so led to do something else, but I can't figure out what that is because of this responsibility. Like wave a magic wand. And I've written 1,000 vision dreams and all the things. Nothing could have come close to this. I couldn't have dreamt it up in my wildest dreams. And it's a testimony to how big God is, right? And what he can do if you fully surrender and trust in that. It's insane.
Yeah, we had to be willing to surrender it, but also to whom much is given, much is required. And we were given a whole lot of responsibility. And to be able to lock arms with you and to go on this adventure together and to know, like, to finally feel like the sky is the limit on where we go from here, and to be surrounded by such incredible leadership and mentorship and like the products and just how incredible. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I feel like we're on the precipice of kind of that next level that you and I have been talking about for like 2 years now.
Yeah.
Hoping and wishing for. And it's like, it's better than I even imagined.
Yeah.
And it's such an aliveness that you feel when you're in that mode, and knowing that you can invite other people into that and that they have the potential to experience what both you and I experienced previously is just like the greatest gift ever.
There is no greater gift. I mean, it really is insane to think that like we have this potential opportunity that we know we're going to bring people in and they're going to change their family generationally. Like in the next decade, that's going to happen for countless people that we are leading. I get goosebumps. I just got goosebumps like head to toe. So before we wrap, because I know there's probably a lot of people listening that are like, oh, this is so awesome. And I love hearing her story. But there's also probably a lot of people that are like, I still don't understand. Like, how is this different? It's another network marketing company. And you and I are like, no, it's not. Because I just want the audience to hear how convicted you and I are in that we would never, ever, we don't need to financially do this, right? We would never, ever join a quote unquote network marketing company ever again. Like there's 1,000 other things I can do. I would never go back into the space with the way that it has been built with every other company that exists in the space today. This is a brand new company, so it's been built entirely differently. It's been built to withstand time, right? Which we're watching company after company after company go out of business. But will you explain kind of why this is so radically different than every other quote unquote network marketing opportunity?
Yeah. So I think the thing that was most appealing to me, well, one, the products. I knew right from the get-go when Kristen and Jordan, my best friends, they were explaining, I was like, oh, I'm in. And I know I'm a hard sell. So like I am really good at sales because I'm really hard to sell. And I'm like the ultimate skeptic. I don't believe in anything anybody's selling. I'm like, they're just getting paid.
Yep.
But they were just explaining it to me. And I was like, skeptic first, like, man, I don't see that. And then as they decided to like I'm like, oh, okay.
Yep.
I definitely I want those products. So that's important. And I think the other thing is like, it's Justin keeps saying, Justin Prince, who's the founder of this, they're called blue ocean products. So like products that you're not competing with everybody else. When you're selling shakes, it's like my shake has this many calories and this many grams of protein versus yours. And this has this, and you're comparing tit for tat. Like this, there's no other comparison on the market. And we've seen all of the people starting to come out of the woodwork, finally admitting to taking like therapeutic peptides. This is a peptide from nature. So you're not creating feedback loops. You're not injecting your body. It's things that your body needs. And I feel like the unlock that I've had in my own body after 2 years of I was doing all the right things, all the things I've always done. And they just like literally were not working anymore. This has unlocked. And I feel like my body is like, oh yeah, that's how I work. Like,
totally feel the same.
So that's number one. But number two, the way that they've structured the business. So they have kind of a dual-sided plan. So there is the affiliate marketing side, which I would say most people are familiar with. You guys have bought through an influencer. They make a commission based on how much they sell. There's a sliding scale. If like they sell one product, they might be a 10% commission. If they are like a high sales driver, they can go all the way up to 40% commission. I love that because this next generation, my daughter's generation, like the goal is to be a YouTuber and an influencer. Like that's what they want to do with their life. And I'm like, you can do that, but you might always be chasing the next thing, because typical influencing is you get the first order and then they own your customers. They make everything residual. With this, you own your customer and you get continuous residual income from anything else they purchase, but you don't have to go build a team if you don't want to. And that's not for everybody. And being in this business, it does take a specific type of person that truly gets like, they get filled up. Like I don't build a team out of like begrudgingly. I am filled up by helping other people realize and live out their potential. But that's not for everybody. Some people just like to sell. So I loved that there was that side just for the little, like a micro influencer up to like a big influencer, and for them to create something that's actual residual income. Because y'all, trying to chase the next product, and you're constantly changing. One, the more things that you're constantly pitching, the more watered down and the less I believe you.
Yep.
So that's that side. The other side of the plan is so different from what you and I experienced, where it was like, you kind of felt like you had to manipulate, like, oh, I have to get this person to get this rank for me to get this. And it's like, no, I don't want to deal with that. Like, I stopped even pursuing bonuses and things like that, because I was like, I don't ever want to question my own integrity.
It wasn't worth the integrity hit and the mental health hit. I know I did the same thing. I was like, I can't do this anymore. But then the guilt of like, but then I'm not getting this bonus, which is like needed. My family, like, it was a toxic environment, and none of that toxicity is here. None of it.
None of it. There's no reaching out because you need something from someone. It's like, you are helping people who want to help themselves. Like, I am working with the willing and seeing people win. Like, we're on the same team. So like, some of the people that were a part of our old team that are here now, unreal how much more they are succeeding here, both on both sides.
Yeah.
Like, mind blowing, like 20 times more.
Yes.
It just goes to show, the product and the platform, it just matters. And so for me, it's doing life in a way that is, it's an elevated way of doing this business. We were just at a mastermind with people that do not impact us. Right. And the level of collaboration, zero competition, like, here is the best of what I have. And I have no scarcity mindset to think I need to withhold anything from you, because I know we're better together, and I know we will help more people win if we combine our forces. Like, what? That doesn't exist in most of the world. It is such a rare thing. And it's something that is just, nobody has an ego about them.
Right.
It's just
humble leadership.
Yes.
Humble leadership, which you and I are both very much drawn to.
Sure.
And I think it wasn't until we were at that mastermind in Florida that I also realized the magnitude that has happened with this company. That, I mean, people have walked away from fortunes that they were earning at other companies, multiple other companies, to come together to build something new. So it is, I mean, it's mind-blowing that it is the best of the best of the best in the industry, and the best minds, where you're the best at strategy, you're the best at social media, you're the best at comp plan, building this thing together. There is nothing that has ever been created like it, and there won't ever be. I mean, it to me is the opportunity. It sounds like even an understatement to say the opportunity of a lifetime. It really does.
No, it feels like Ephesians 3:20. It's exceedingly and abundantly more than I could have ever asked, thought, or imagined.
Yep.
It has really brought me so much peace.
Yeah.
You know, you can feel really good about sharing it with somebody. Actually, I feel really bad when I don't share it with people. And that's how I used to feel back in the day when I was starting. I was like, I feel convicted to share this until I didn't. And then it's like, with this, I feel like, wow, I would be such a jerk if I didn't share this gift with other people. And so it's just been like a really, really amazing 3.5 months with us being on this journey together. And I just know that the best is yet to come.
Absolutely. I would say, and this is not speaking of just you and I, but it is the dream team, just because of who is at the helm and who is creating this from the ground up. It's only God. Only God could orchestrate all of that amazingness. Oh my gosh. I want to talk for another hour, but we probably shouldn't. So let me ask you this, because I'm wondering this as we wrap. I'm like, what can we wrap with? And you've achieved so much. You have, conquered so much in your life. And so my thought is, for the audience, what would you say, 2 questions? Do you have any type of like morning process or a thing that you kind of follow in the morning that grounds you and roots you? And then secondly, what about like an amazing book that you would suggest for the listeners?
Dang. Okay. So morning routine. Absolutely. So I love when I wake up super early, at like 5 o'clock before everybody else does. That doesn't always happen, but when it does, that is the most ideal. And so that looks like I usually follow a 1-year Bible plan. And so I'll read, 12 minutes. It's not like I'm sitting there for hours, but I'll read that day's Old Testament, New Testament, proverb, and Psalm. And then I will journal a little bit about what I just read. Shout out to Amy Bailey. I actually started using her planner, and that kind of goes through like 3 things you're grateful for, a brain dump. It has the verse of the day and a breakdown of that, and then the schedule for the day. And it even has like a food log and all of that. Wow. So I try to fill out the first page of that to kind of get my mind set and ready to go. And then I want to get my workout in as soon as humanly possible. So all of the things, all of the buckets that ground me, is putting faith first, putting my own personal fitness in there. And then obviously with the kids waking up and stuff, getting some time with my family before I jump into work. Yeah. Everything in me, I know there's entrepreneurs that watch this, like everything in me wants to jump right into work. Yeah. Like from the moment I wake up, I want to jump into my DMs and I want to do all the things. And I just have realized that leaves me depleted. Yeah. And success should not cost you your peace. And when you do it that way, it will. There's always going to be more work to do. So that's really, really important to me.
So good.
Gosh, a book. There's so many. I've read like 4 or 5 books already this year. One that I reread. Why am I blanking on it? It was so good. Hold on. Okay. So one that I reread because it was the book club that we're doing a book of the month was Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits. I had forgotten how good that was.
I did the same thing. So we probably both read it like a decade ago, right?
Yes.
And then rereading it was like the first time I'd ever read it. Mind blowing. It's so good.
It's so good. So even if you've read it in the past, you're like, yeah, that got that book checked. No. You need to go back. You need to go back and reread that, because speaking of habits, he talks all about that. And it's like, dang, it really is true. If you have those little triggers throughout your day, you're just so much more effective. So that was definitely one that I was really happy.
Absolutely. I back you up on that. Atomic Habits. It's James Clear, right?
Yes. James Clear.
James Clear. Awesome. All right. Well, let's wrap there. Lindsay, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your story, just your leadership. Thank you for being such a good friend to me and such a beacon for me. I'm just so filled with gratitude that we get to do this together and we get to lead together. I will put everything in the show notes, whether it's like your Instagram handle, kind of where to find you and all of that. But any last thoughts as we close?
I just think there has to be somebody on here that sees yourself maybe where we used to be. And you have this idea of what it looks like when, that thing happens. And I would just ask yourself, what is the thing that I'm holding on to control of right now? And what is that thing that I could be laying down? I swear every time I ask myself that question, and I don't question the vehicle. You have to give up that vehicle. Yep. Because it's probably not going to look like what you thought it did. I know the very first time it wasn't the way I thought it would be. And even this time, both Moira and I thought, we out. It didn't look like what we thought it would. And yet it becomes better than we ever could have imagined. Yes. And so it's often surrendering what the vehicle is, and it's surrendering control of something that you yourself, are too scared to let go of, letting that thing go. Yeah. And man, it's just like you jump in the vehicle in front of you. And it might just take you a few miles. It might take you 15 years, but you will get places you never thought you would go.
Oh, Amen, sister. Oh my gosh, the most beautiful place to end. I love that so, so, so much. You guys, I want to encourage you to send this episode to a friend. Just tag Lindsay when you listen to this, tag myself. We would love to hear your thoughts. So we are the only ones in our Instagram DMs. So shoot us a message on this. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Lindsay. And we will see you guys next week.